physique is complete without wide, sweeping lats. Your lats can make your shoulders look more broad and your waist more narrow, which comes down to that beautiful V shape that most people are after. In fact, for men, that V tapered physique is something that's often sought after when it comes to looking your best. And for women, the hourglass shape is also accentuated when you have lats that are wide enough to also make your waist look a little bit more narrow for the hourglass shape. So whether you're man or woman, doesn't really matter. Building your lats is absolutely crucial to building your best looking body. And so today we're gonna cover 3 underrated exercises that you should incorporate now if you want to be able to build your best looking back and build those lats up. Also, before I forget, make sure if you're getting value directly from these videos, hit subscribe and drop me a comment below. Reason is, that's how we know if what we're doing is actually hitting home and how we keep all these videos clean from all the annoying advertisements that are taking over YouTube. Hey, so when it comes to training your lats, one thing we need to understand, a lot of people just think about lats from a vertical pulling component, but we actually get a lot of work directly for our lats anytime we're doing even a horizontal pull. Now, when it comes to doing vertical versus horizontal pulls, here's one thing that most people don't understand. When we are overhead, the lats focus and do a lot of internal rotation. Internal rotation is that same kyphotic position that you're in all day when you're on your phone, when you're on your computer at work. And so if we want to naturally start pulling your shoulders back, helping you have better posture and better overall training, what we need to do is also train the lats with more horizontal pulling type exercises. It doesn't mean that a vertical pulling exercise like a pull down or a chin up isn't going to help you. It will, but we also need to keep an eye on what shoulder health actually looks like. And in many cases, incorporating horizontal pulls, but more of a lat bias focus can help you build your lats, build sweeping lats, and do so without exacerbating any potential shoulder issues that you might already be having. First exercise we're gonna fix your dumbbell row. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna put you on a very slight incline when you're doing a single arm row and dial in the mechanics of the exercise. So you can do what most people do for a dumbbell row, but make it exponentially more effective for hitting your lats. First thing I want you to pay attention to, look at my arm angle right here. We are right at 90 degrees. The vast majority of people, when you see them do a row, what happens? They're actually doing a pull and they're gonna be at what we consider an acute less than 90 degree angle. And so if your row right here is less than 90 degrees, look at this arm angle here. Well, guess what? We're gonna bias the exercise a lot more towards your forearms and towards your biceps. So a lot of people, what they end up doing, they're just doing this whole deal. They're kind of starting a lawnmower when it comes to their one-arm row technique. And they're actually focusing a lot more on their forearms and on their biceps than actually hitting their lats. And so when we come over and actually do a one-arm row, as I'm about to show you, we want to keep right around that 90 degree mark right there. And as we get towards end range, you're going to take your elbow and imagine wrapping it around your rib cage just slightly, and you will get an incredible squeeze with your lats. Now I like to use a bench just so I have some external support here. And so here's what I mean when I'm talking about the row. We don't want to come up and then we have this tight arm angle right here. This is going to bias everything directly towards the bicep and towards the forearm. That's fine if you just want to train your biceps, but if you want to build bigger lats, we need to keep at least a 90 degree angle right here. And so the angle of pull, a lot of times I'm reaching down a little bit, a pre-stretch, and I'm driving the elbow back, but when I'm pulling back, I'm actually pulling my hand more towards my hip because we want to keep that 90 degree angle, right? And so when you're doing your row, think of pulling towards your hip pocket, staying at around 90 degrees, and as you get towards the end range of motion on your row, don't just stop right here. Come through and do your pull, and imagine you're doing that row and you're wrapping around that rib cage ever so slightly. And so with dumbbell rows, the biggest thing is to be able to focus on actually squeezing that lat, not just racing through the exercise like you're trying to pull start a lawnmower. When you use that very slight angle that you saw in the demonstration, it's gonna allow you to focus, push that hand down for a little bit more support, and get a better contraction through your lats. Using a flat bench is okay. I just find most people have better stability when they have that very slight incline. Now, we don't want to go too much higher on the incline because what will happen is then you're naturally going to start being more upright in terms of body position, which can start to bias that row a little bit more towards your traps and rhomboids. Now, the one-arm row might seem like a simple, straightforward exercise, and in many cases it is, but the vast majority of people, again, they end up completely ignoring tempo. They do not get that contraction all the way at the end range, and then their arm angle gets too tight. So if we focus on having better technique and a better squeeze directly on the exercise, one, we can bias directly towards the lat, but two, you're gonna be able to focus on building your lats and not just your biceps if you implement it correctly. When it comes to a one-arm row, you can do these as heavy as you want. Again, I have a lot of people who make incredible progress doing sets of 5, 6, and even 8 reps if they can find weights that are heavy enough. Otherwise, if you tend to run out of weight at the gym, classic set and rep schemes, 3 by 8 to 10 is gonna be fine. You can even take dumbbell rows up to a pretty high rep range with something like a croc row, which is basically a cheat one-arm dumbbell row done for as many reps as you can. You're free to use straps here. I've seen some people use dumbbell rows for sets of 20, 25, even 50 when they use the croc row variation. But for the simple sake of what we're doing right here, I would say 3 sets of 6 to 8 is gonna be a sweet spot. If you're running out of weight directly in the gym, awesome, bump it up to 4 sets of 10 to 12. That's gonna have enough mechanical tension, but also some metabolic stress, AKA the pump, to also support lat growth. Exercise number 2, an isodynamic lat pull down. We have 2 parts. We have the iso and we have the dynamic. So one limb is gonna be isometric contraction. That isometric contraction can really help improve your mind-muscle connection and recruit some dormant muscle fibers in your lats to spur more growth. The dynamic is the side that's gonna be moving. And so we can use this method. Both the isometric component can be great to improve the mind-muscle connection, and if you can't feel a muscle contraction, you'd have one hell of a time making it grow. But this also works well as a finishing type exercise. Because we're combining that isometric, so say if we're holding for 30 seconds while I perform all of our reps here, and then we have to perform reps on the backside, there's gonna be a ton of built-up fatigue directly in your lats. So in an exercise like this, I'll go 3 sets of 8 to 10 reps. And when we're doing the 3 sets of 8 to 10, remember, one side is gonna be holding down. So if that set takes 30, 40 seconds to the amount of volume we're doing with a contraction, we're gonna have a little bit less weight than we normally would for 8 to 10 reps, simply because the amount of fatigue would indicate that we're probably using something close to a 15 rep max. Here's what it looks like. All right, so you can use different types of grips. I'm a little bit limited with this functional trainer, so everything is gonna be a wider grip, which tends to bias kind of towards the upper lat a little bit more. If you wanted to use something like a closer grip, you could. You'd be in a little bit tighter. It's gonna bias more towards the lower lat fibers. But in this case, what we'll do, the isometric, again, we'll say is on the right side. I'm gonna pull down, I'm gonna hold. And while I'm holding, I'm actively thinking of driving the elbow down. I'm squeezing that lat. And then 1, and again, good control. Looks like I need to lube up this thing a little bit. Now I switch, and so we do both sides in a set. So right, left, that's 1 set. So again, we got the 2 parts. We got the isometric, the hold, and then the dynamic component. Because we have both of those things combined, well, we create a ton of muscle building tension directly in there. And with the isometric contraction, we can improve that mind-muscle connection. When you can recruit a muscle fiber, when you can feel it contract, and you put a lot of fatigue directly underneath it, then you're gonna be able to create a great stimulus for muscle growth, especially if you've been struggling to grow your lats. The final exercise we have here is a jackknife pull-up. If we look at most pull-ups, a lot of people struggle to actually be able to get overhead when it comes to their shoulder mechanics safely. Right? So if you get the vast majority of people, if they do a press or a pull, they can probably get to about here before they start to arch through their lower back to actually compensate to get results, or to be able to get to that ideal movement pattern, right? So the vast majority of people who cannot press overhead safely without arching through their lower back will struggle to do pull-ups safely without a lot of compensation, either through their trunk or even compromise their shoulder position, which can lead to shoulder issues. So what we want to be able to do is we want to factor that in and be able to have somewhat of a quasi-vertical pulling exercise that puts a ton of tension directly on your lats without putting you in a position where you might get banged up. So again, pull-ups and chin-ups are a great exercise, but similar to an overhead press where most people can't overhead press with good position based on mobility restrictions, we can use a jackknife pull-up as a way to be able to get that vertical pulling stimulus and be able to have more volume than most people can do with chin-ups because they're not strong enough or they have too much body fat, and be able to create wider lats in the meantime. So the jackknife pull-up, I will use either rings, or if you have a squat rack, you could put the bars up at a decent height, or you can even use a Smith machine. So whatever you have available for you. It could be rings, it could be a TRX, whatever the case. Got my legs right here on a bench. I'm actually gonna pull this in just a little bit and look to keep them around 90 degrees. And now, I'm gonna simply draw my elbows down and do a pull down. So set up very similar to a chin up. Shoulders are tucked down and back, and now the movement is initiated by drawing my elbows down and I'm pulling up. Okay, so notice this isn't a directly vertical movement here.
We can adjust body position slightly. If you lean back a little bit more, it's even more of a row. But it allows you to train that vertical movement pattern with a free range of motion device in the case of having a set of rings or a TRX or a jungle gym, and really hit your lats even if you typically have poor shoulder mobility, which the vast majority of people do. And again, this is a great exercise because you can have a lot more volume directly with an overhead pulling movement, even if you have a home gym type setup without a lat pull down. And again, it tends to be a better position overall than what most people can actually do with a pull-up or with a chin-up. So there you have it, 3 simple exercises that can make a profound difference in terms of your lat training, and frankly, they're all kind of underrated. A one-arm dumbbell row, most times people need to actually improve their form so they can actually recruit their lats instead of biasing it directly towards the biceps, and forearms are acting like they're pull starting a lawnmower. The second exercise, an isodynamic lat pull down, helps you improve that muscle, that mind muscle connection directly with your lats, and puts a ton of metabolic stress, aka the pump, directly into your lats. Finally, we have the jackknife pull-up. This is an incredible exercise because most people cannot press or pull overhead safely without compromising their overall shoulder stability, and therefore tend to run into issues with wrist, elbow, and shoulder pain. The way around that, we use a quasi movement like a jackknife pull-up, where you can still train that vertical pulling pattern, but do so in a much less stressful environment on your joints. And when it comes to doing a jackknife pull-up, it really depends how strong you are. If you struggle to do more than 5 or 6 chin-ups, I would recommend building your strength up directly on a jackknife pull-up. You can use a vest, you can use chains, whatever you have available to add external resistance. Then work your way up into classic muscle building rep schemes, multiple sets of 6, 8, 10, and 12 reps will do the trick. If you get plenty strong and you're looking to build some more endurance, then take those sets as high as 12 to 15 reps per set. There you have it, 3 simple exercises that you can do to blow up your lats. Remember, success comes down to the ruthless execution of the basics. You don't need a million different exercises, but you do need to find the right exercises to fit your body and execute them properly, much like we showed you directly in this video. Now, if you want step-by-step guidance to be able to look, feel, and perform your best without leaving the gym, all you have to do, go through the description box below and click on docperformance.com/coaching. We'll show you everything that you need to do in order to look great naked without living in the gym. That's it. I'll see you on the next one.
Did you find this helpful? If so, pound that like button and hit subscribe. Now, if you want a free copy of our Chiseled Muscle Cheat Sheet, the no BS way to help you lose body fat and build lean muscle in 90 days, make sure that you go to the description below and download your free copy. Any questions? Drop them in the comments, and can't wait to see you with the next video.